You're watching Public Comment every Thursdays at 8 a.m. The live stream. Detroit is different and Bridge Detroit. Local politics of Detroit. All right. Welcome back to Public Comment. And we are here once again talking about local politics of Detroit. When I say we, myself, Khary Frazier of Detroit, it's different. And my brother in arms on this project, Malachi Barrett. Malachi, how are you today?
I'm doing great. We were just laughing about my gas station coffee this morning.
Yes.
It's one of those days. It was a long day yesterday. Need a little gas station pick me up to get started.
Oh man, it definitely was an effect yesterday as we're actually picking up on the topic from last week. We're picking up on the future of health topic, exploring. Shout out again to Tanya Myers Phillips, representing the community from that perspective. The West Grand Boulevard, what is it? West Grand Boulevard collaborative organization that came together for this about some of the 5 things that were requested there. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but we're going to also talk about the full overview because it was set to vote yesterday at council. So talk a little bit about what was happening at council leading up to this future health deal. And then we're going to give more of an overview of the future health deal. But what was the tone at in council? Just for everybody to know, the future of health is a project that combines Henry Ford Health Systems with Michigan State University and the Detroit Pistons. It's the expansion for the hospital. It will include a research facility and also a lot of housing. And housing seems to be the point of contention because this deal is before City Council seeking a lot of tax abatements, a lot of tax breaks, a lot of tax restructuring, a lot of brownfield has been allocated to this project, and that includes like city, state, county, a lot of different actors involved in public money going for this private venture. So, what was the tone down there at City Council, Malachi?
Yeah, so we are kind of nearing the end of this really long process. We've been talking about the future of health for, pretty much 6 months or so. This project was announced back in February of 2023, maybe 22 even. Anyway, this has been kind of in the ether for a long time, but now this is the most kind of public forum for the discussion around this project as it comes to City Council. There's a number of things that they are looking at approving. There's the transformational brownfield plan, which is the biggest set of tax incentives. There's a number of smaller local tax breaks, and really the difference between the brownfield plan and the local abatements. So an abatement is you basically get the taxes waived, you don't have to pay them. The brownfield plan actually collects the tax revenue and then redirects it back to developers to reimburse part of their development costs over, in this case, 35 years. So there's also a community benefits agreement that was finalized with the community at the end of last year, which needs to get approved. And then there's a number of zoning changes. So it's a lot that the council is kind of taking on all at one time. They're talking about this all as like a package instead of, one by one, week by week kind of thing. And you were seeing, really yesterday, the tone was this kind of crackling tension as you have really the opportunity for a lot of folks on different sides of this issue to come down to council and use that forum to influence the process, to push council members in one way or another to advocate for the aspects of the deal that they think are most important. And we saw everybody from Detroiters for Tax Justice, a group of activists who have really been active in city council for a long time now, opposing large tax deals, tax breaks for large developers. Then you also had a lot of union contract workers and skilled trade workers, construction workers, who are often a fixture of these meetings as well, who are kind of focusing on the promise of jobs that will come out of this and the food it will put on their tables, and the fact that Detroiters need access to these good paying jobs, and skilled trades is kind of a pipeline to a solid career and all of that stuff, generational wealth, right?
So as I'm going to open up the slides this time around, and some similar to last week, like you're presenting some of the players at hand that were there for public comment, because the public comment sphere is the community interest also the corporate interest involved in this, and also the partners of this, because the partnerships kind of go in many ways. And like a lot of the challenges of the city, like it's not as linear as good, bad, black, white. It's very layered of what and how. And then also because we've seen so many developments use so much tax money. The root of a lot of these questions really begin with the fact of, do you need tax money to develop in the city of Detroit? Do you need tax incentives? And this has been something that, shout out to Theo Pride, Detroit People's Platform, has argued that no, you can use your own money, and these are ways, and these are ways, and how. And then you'll hear a lot of developers speak like, nah, Detroit, you're gonna need some incentive. This argument is a consistent argument. That argument also goes against the key argument of the community, from the Tell Us Detroit days, of people still feel as though they have not been compensated in any way directly for the overassessed taxes that really cut off at a very short period of time as well. So it's no telling how long the municipality of Detroit and Wayne County have been overtaxing residents of the city of Detroit. So the argument becomes, you can pay for the investment of developers and business people to expand their business interest and footprint. But what about people in the community? And this has been a consistent argument going on with projects like this. So like when we even review this project, let's go into some of the talking points of like one of the things from the slide. 3 billion in new mission driven investment. So we can already see the whole concept of this. New emergency department, shorter wait time. 877 total single patient rooms, legacy. 600 plus new residential units with affordable housing component. So that right there, affordable housing component, that's going to be one of those key things we talk about today. Also, 25,000 plus jobs, 16,000 current, 8,200 construction, career
It's interesting that they
pathways.
count the current jobs in that total as well. And I think that kind of speaks to a lot of, when you start diving into the details of this, what kind of gets brought into the total is very interesting. 700 new jobs is important, and 800 or 8,000 construction jobs.
And construction means when construction's over. And then as we've seen, a lot of those construction jobs do not actually come back to Detroiters, because we've seen project after project that says they're going to hire a lot of people for jobs, not end up hiring people and pay the fines, which I actually saw in your article that some of the money that was to be allocated for was it I believe like rent reduction.
So there was $2 million for rent assistance.
Yeah.
Another I gotta find the number for me. It was like $500,000 or something like that for oh, I'm sorry. I'm
well. As you get into the number,
these two pots of money could be used to offset the cost of the fines for not meeting the workforce hiring goals. And Henry Ford has volunteered. They don't have to do it because they're a nonprofit entity, but the Pistons have to follow it. So the Henry Ford has said, we will volunteer to hit these workforce hiring goals, but if we don't, then we can use the investments the Pistons are making to offset our fines, basically.
So basically, so people get the idea straight, they're already anticipating that the workforce is not there, meaning that it's not enough work in the pool of workers, especially from the city of Detroit, from communities like mine, from communities like this, which is in the footprint of my alma mater, Northwestern High School. Shout out Marty Coates.
I got those numbers
where this kind of goes.
It was and you're right. I mean, most of these projects, the city tracks it. There's a dashboard online you can go look at. A lot of them do not hit that. I mean, most of them don't hit that and have to end up paying fines. But so the Pistons agreed to donate $2 million to a home repair fund for nearby neighborhoods, and then $500,000 for a rental assistance fund. Those are spread out over a couple of years.
And we also have to explore that community, Zone 8, shout out Yusuf Shakur, is one of those communities that now is transitioning, like mine, 48238 over here in the Square Hope Village, to more of a renter-based community. So it could be corporations helping corporations again, even with the housing investment. You know what I mean? So it's back to like, what do residents get out of this? Because for so long, the feeling and the thoughts of many are that as a community member in the city of Detroit, I'm being neglected. Also, when you talk about the affordable housing of this project, a lot of the affordable housing is going to the potential people that will work there soon. So this map right here just kind of shows a lot of the new construction versus the existing facilities. So light blue, that'll be the new construction. And if
So
you can
that's looking east down the boulevard. So on the left side, that's the north side. That's the current facilities. They're planning. Henry Ford is planning to build its hospital expansion on the south side of the building, and then on the east side of the lodge is where all of the housing buildings are going to go. Their Pistons are going to build 2 new buildings and then rehab a office building that's currently used by Henry Ford. And all of those sites are owned by Henry Ford. They're going to lease to the Pistons. They're not collecting any tax revenue right now. So I want to talk about that kind of connection between the two projects, if that's cool. That, a lot of this discussion is about the housing component that the Pistons are doing. There's not a lot of like opposition or even like discussion or frustration about what Henry Ford's doing with its hospital expansion, which is most of the, we talk about a $3 billion development plan. $2 billion and change of that is for the hospital expansion, the research facility, and all of that. Which, or I guess I actually think the research facility is part of the what's seeking some tax breaks as well. But most of the tax breaks are going to support the housing project that the Pistons are doing. And there's a lot of concern, as we often hear with these kinds of things. What is the impact on rents in the area going to be? It's a majority renter community over there. That was always a big concern of the Neighborhood Advisory Council that had negotiated community benefits with these 3 entities. And, does the affordable housing that they've set aside, 20% of the total housing, about 130 some units, is that actually attainable for people? Is that affordable? The Pistons have reached a little bit deeper than we've seen in the past. They're offering a portion of those for people earning, around $23,000, like 30% AMI, which is, useful, but it's also a very small number. And the market rate apartments are going to be a lot more expensive than that.
So wait, when you say AMI, we've spoke about this before in the presentation of the year end. Like I said, let's go back to old trigonometry. Median is usually the number that's like to be used because that drifts away from mean. So adjusted median income to determine it as a determinant factor of what rent and affordable housing would look like. Like I say, the problem with median is median can be offset by anybody. It's like the bell curve. Like anyone with the highest figure will offset where median is. So if Warren Buffett were to move into my neighborhood, now all of a sudden the median income in my neighborhood is going to be something closer to a millionaire just because Warren Buffett is there. And I know it's going to be some economist that says, no, it's going to be factors that how you look at things and da da da. I'm just telling you that this is where median goes. Hence mean. That's an average. An average, you can't play around with the numbers as much. Median income itself, I think, it needs to be challenged as one of the determinant factors to determine what's affordable and what people are making. But even with median, as you said, like depending upon how you look at the footprint of everything, you could go a couple blocks left, or a couple blocks or a mile or two to the left or to the right when we think about that community, because that's my high school's community, Northwestern, Zone 8. So you got the number streets over there, Dexter, Linwood, 12th Street. Like you're looking at a level of what America would determine as poverty that's so intense and so ingrained in communities like that, that, easily even the 30,000 that's probably on paper is probably more like 21, 22, 23,000. Like I'm talking about like late 1980s, late 1990s, looking at, that type of earning is still alive in communities like that as I know it. You know what I'm saying? I walk it. So to put these houses, the houses are being more so put up for the people that I believe are looked at that they will live there. You were speaking a little bit about this, as I believe that this was from his presentation, So can you speak a little bit more so to the Pistons presentation yesterday, as I even got the picture up now,
Yeah. Well, to your point, I mean, the AMI calculation includes communities outside Detroit, and that skews the numbers. It raises them up. So the median income reward person for what we would consider is $66,000. I mean, we know that's like double what the actual area median income for Detroiters are. And there was a market study that the Pistons had done as part of their putting together the financials for this project that showed the median income is actually $34,000 for residents living within a 5-mile radius of the actual project. And it's even lower for people living a lot closer. It's like $30,000 if you live within a mile of kind of the project area. And the rents are going to range, from $730, something like that, all the way up to like $2,500 for a 1-bedroom unit, up to almost $3,000 a month for a 2-bedroom unit. So I think that kind of illustrates some of the gap between the market rate apartments, what will be the bulk of the apartments that are available, and what people can actually afford, especially in that area. And council members are really concerned about what happens when these more expensive apartment units come online. Does that encourage landlords in the area to raise their rents? Councilmember James Tate said, yeah, it's pretty much inevitable. The rents are going to go up. It's just the nature of things, is what he said. And the project, the 700 or so jobs that are going to be created, those are expected to have a wage of about $100,000 per year. And about a third of those are expected to go to Detroiters. So what we're talking about is this project is going to create a lot of opportunities for people to earn higher wages. Most of them won't be people from, who are currently living in the city. And, what do they do? The Pistons actually said that part of the benefit of this project is that they're building the housing for those new employees. So they won't be kind of spreading out through the area and causing displacement, causing gentrification. They actually talked pretty clearly about, with the jobs that this is going to generate, it could result in displacement. So they're delivering the housing to protect against that, is what they're saying, and make housing affordable. So they're arguing this is actually a protection against displacement and gentrification, because they're building the housing for these new employees who are going to be making more money to live, which I think is kind of an acknowledgement that it's not really for
the people that currently live there, which is already displacement and gentrification. And leading up to it, the slide I got now is Detroiters for Tax Justice. You already spoke to the organizers there and what they're walking with, and I definitely walking that path, like Mama Amar, Elena Harada, Russ Ballant, so many staunch legal minds and activist minds around what would empower people. And I think a lot of their fight really began because a lot of this money for projects like this is being taken away from different public goods, specifically libraries. Like, libraries are in a state of the library monies are being allocated to all types of things other than Detroit libraries. And that's tough for so many communities like mine, that the library and what it represents. They held a rally before council and stayed there the whole time. So you said it was like 10 o'clock all the way to about 5 o'clock yesterday, with so many people for public comment, over 100 names in it, and just what that energy is. I wanted to speak to that. And then as we look at the different points of view from the perspective of this community benefits agreement deck that Tanya was talking about. So one of the things you spoke to what Councilmember Tate said, you also quoted Councilmember Waters speaking of what's the relationship between the housing and this project. I know I just kind of cut into where you were coming from and you were speaking to that, but explicitly to say that this will be housing for the people that will work here. What then in turn is the empowerment for the people that currently live in this community? And what does it look like more so from their lens? Because some of these things, expanded emergency room with shorter wait times. So part of the benefits that was associated with this, as you spoke to in your article, is that now people will have access to more health options because of the emergency room expansion, but they would have had to treat these patients anyway. But also you could argue that now that they're going to live further away, because you're gonna have people that earn more money also there. It's like a six in one hand, half dozen in the other. You know what I'm saying? So it's gonna the service you'll have. There will be more access, but it'll also be more people that are higher in the caste system of wealth disparities in America. Let's speak to that. You know what I'm saying? That could now take advantage of some of the benefits that this was supposed to be for you in the first place.
Yeah, I think, the unspoken, or I guess it was very well spoken, actually. It was named out pretty clearly. Why is the Pistons housing project connected to this hospital expansion? Which, again, I think a lot of people are looking at what Henry Ford and MSU are going to be doing as a positive thing. There's going to be expanded capacity. It'll be shorter wait times, easier to get service if you're in a medical situation. MSU is going to be studying diseases that disproportionately impact Black people. They're making efforts to make sure that care is coming to Detroiters, right? The stick up is around the housing project. And what was interesting yesterday is we heard from Henry Ford that they always envision this as all part of the same thing, and you can't really decouple the housing project from the hospital. They need that capacity, is what they talked about, expanding capacity with having more people apparently living in those units. And also, let me be clear, there's a portion of the taxes that are going to pay for the research facility as well. It's really the hospital expansion itself that doesn't require any tax breaks. But I think a lot of people are still confused about that. Like, why can't you just build the hospital area that you were thinking about, and then we'll have a whole separate conversation about the tax breaks but it's part of this idea that, like, these projects are all part of like a development vision. It's a transformational project. That's where the whole transformational brownfield state money kind of comes into play. But there was a really robust conversation yesterday from council members kind of questioning what counts as community benefits in the deal that was negotiated, because that's a big piece of this as well, the deal that was negotiated with residents. And the planning department has valued the benefits deal at $604 million, which is huge. I mean, that's way bigger than any community benefits deal that we've seen come across before. It also inspired a lot of skepticism because about half of that money comes from what Henry Ford estimates it will cost extra to treat uninsured patients who are coming through their expanded emergency room. So basically, as a consequence of, or a result of, building out larger capacity, they're going to bring in more people who are uninsured, and that's going to take on additional costs for them. Now, is that a community benefit that was negotiated as part of the exchange for tax breaks, or is that just part of the project? Like, that's something that comes directly from building the bigger emergency room. That's what Councilmember Tate and some others were kind of diving into, that some of these numbers are inflated, or they're included to kind of raise the value of the deal when they maybe shouldn't count toward that. There's another $90 million in benefits tied to operations at the research facility. But operations at the research facility were going to happen whether there was a negotiation with the residents. That's not really something that was like added. And I think MSU and Henry Ford would argue that while they're making decisions about care and they're adjusting operations based on concerns that the neighborhood had, and that's true to some extent, but when we're talking about like dollar value being added to this whole thing so that they can say we've got the largest benefits package ever, it's more than fair that you're getting these tax breaks, because look at this, we're giving you $600 million in value. That's where some of the kind of skepticism comes into play. I mean, there's another 30 million in green space improvements, $55 million in infrastructure. That is something that the NAC asked for. The neighborhood group did ask, for.
But then,
was that stuff going to happen anyway?
And then we got to also get into the execution of the neighborhood group and how much of the neighborhood was in the neighborhood group, which that is part of what's coming to life now that the community benefits ordinance is moving forward. And great strides and fights when we think of Tanya Meyer Phillips last week, our guest, that with Sugar Law and so many others that move forward on certain expansions and projects needing this being necessary, but also the makeup of who appoints these members of it and how long they've been in the community, because some of the people in the community group deciding this for the neighborhood, you know what I'm saying? When I look at the reflection of that neighborhood, it's not necessarily resounding. And then also the options of what could be presented too. And this is where, like, I guess I say that some of this is the adversarial relationship where it always seems like it's community versus corporate interests has been created because a lot of the corporate interests have neglected, I believe, to ingratiate itself in the culture of community in a way that meets where the community is versus where corporations are. Like, I believe that some of the other stakeholders in this project, when I think of that neighborhood, are people that have been missing in some other developments that have happened there, like the Motown Museum. So I think shout out Brazelton Flowers and how long they've been there. I think Cole Funeral Home. I think definitely Northwestern is a big part of this through the work that it already does with Henry Ford and with Michigan State, but ingratiating and aligning itself furthermore with Northwestern and the alumni and what it can do for that school already. Thurko, I think, is the one elementary school that's over there. Shrine of Black Madonna, Tabernacle Church. Like, it's some staunch institutions that have been up and down through that neighborhood that could be resourced in so many ways. The work that Yusef Shakur is doing with Mama Cool House, like, there are staples in that community that I can just go from the top of my mind if any community project were to happen and take place, where I believe whether they're gonna, you know what I'm saying, throw stones and pitch a fit, no matter what, you need to ingratiate yourself with the culture of that community first before things are moving forward. And I know Henry Ford is there, but Henry Ford's relationship with community and some of these same community partners for other things that just happened, I believe, with the cancer expansion, had stir up some of the pot of like, yo, are you really being equitable with the people over here in community? And these are the questions that come back to play of who's representative of neighborhood, who's representative of community. We're definitely in the overtime on this one, but I assume that the root of this is no vote was made as more time was given. So as we kind of close out, when do you think a vote will be made? How much more time do you think would be given? And then furthermore, because we're pretty much to the finish line and this is where it is, what fights can happen right now? I know Tanya gave a top 5 of last week of what she was looking for, but let me get your feedback on that, and then I'll reiterate the top 5 that Tanya gave.
Yeah, it's interesting that, like, when it comes to city council, this is actually an opportunity, albeit kind of a short one, because the timelines on this are kind of always shifting. It's a lot of like, this could be the day, and then it gets kind of delayed another week with these big projects. So there is a vote scheduled for next Tuesday, but this is a small window for people actually in council members really to advocate for more to be added to the community benefits agreement. And there's been some things that they've specifically asked for. The Pistons actually agreed to make $1.5 million donation into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Council President Mary Sheffield had actually asked for $3 million, so they didn't quite meet what she was looking for there. But I talked to Tate after the meeting, and he said, this is potentially an opportunity where they could get some things added. And the community has a long list of requests, which you'll talk about in a minute. But one of the big things is actually the donation of some land that Henry Ford owns in the area to a community land trust. People feel like Henry Ford has not been great stewards of all the property that they have over there, which they've kind of held on to without really letting people know kind of like what is the plan for all of this stuff. I mean, part of it is definitely, future development expansion, but but at the same time, council members themselves are just getting familiar with this deal in some ways. There's a lot of details that they were asking about, which are, have been in the public documents for a long time. So, it's like, at last this kind of comes to the place where these conversations really can happen. And yet I think there's a very limited amount of time that council has to actually, or maybe feels that they have. There's kind of a pressure to either push this through because it's already been through the committee process, but even in the committee, who, James Tate's the chair of the Planning and Economic Development Committee, was telling me that he didn't really have, that wasn't necessarily the forum to really dive deep into this because there's only a couple council members present. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, now this is in front of the entire council. This is really the chance for this body and influenced by the public to really dive into the details on this and, kind of fully explore the implications of this tax break and who's going to get the housing and how does that affect the neighborhood and what more could we get out of the benefits agreement. And yet I feel like there's there's a real kind of time constraint and like rush element to this.
So that's interesting that you bring that up with it. And I'm gonna speak to those 5 things that Tanya's advocating for, because this is all just the other partners basically honoring something that is being decided upon from people that are not necessarily in the community benefits agreement, like the neighborhood council for this, but definitely residents with voice and influence all the same. So this needs to be honored as we're thinking of, like, when we have this discussion, these are the things under the premise of what's left that Tanya even was speaking to. Make annual contributions of 1.5 million for the duration of the tax abatement period to the newly formed community land trust to provide permanent affordable rental and ownership, home ownership opportunities based on average Detroit residents affordability. So that right there, the community land trust should be fed 1.5 million every year this project. I think it could be even more. Make a $1.5 million annual contribution to the Detroit Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So the housing trust and the community land trust provide affordable senior housing within the development project, increasing the affordable units set aside to 25% instead of the 10% that it is now. Provide more affordable senior housing reserved for seniors by providing a restricted annual contribution of, wow, this is 1 billion for the duration of the tax abatements to one or more 501c3 nonprofit community development corporations based in the city of Detroit to increase. So money to CDCs in the city of Detroit. Make a restricted annual contribution of 10 million for the duration of the tax abatement to 501c3 development CDCs in the impact areas. So basically, by providing more housing, money to the community land trust, money to the housing trust fund as well, and empowering those CDCs. That is what Tanya sees in this. I do want to speak to Councilmember Sheffield. You spoke to this in your article, had a rebut, like, where it's like, hey, you all need to give more money to, I forget what that was exactly,
but it was the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
So it was the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Yep.
So giving more money to that. I think in this, the same thing, right to counsel should be honored in this too, because right to counsel needs a lot of funding. This is just a Khary Frazier, hey, throw in some money into that, because now right to counsel, meaning that for so long as a resident in the city of Detroit, if you had a dispute, which I don't think renters' rights are the best here in the city of Detroit, but if you were a renter, you would not have right to counsel like so many other legal proceedings. Now you do have that right to counsel. Shout out to Tanya Myers Phillips and also Councilmember Sheffield, and a lot of the other council members really fought for that. But that fund needs to be funded. So if we can fund that fund, we can get towards justice, because I could easily see projects like this ending up 10, 15 years from now where a renter may have some differences with whoever the management company or the people that manage or operating the property site is. So with that, we way in overtime. It's 33 minutes, but y'all should have known that we're going to talk about this one because it's really the pressing issue of the day.
Yep. And we'll be back at it next week. I don't know if it's going to pass next week. I mean, I get the sense that there's a lot that needs to get worked through still. And, think back to like District Detroit and the Hudson site. Some of those were delayed, multiple weeks. So this could be kind of a long conversation ahead of us here. A lot of opportunities for public comment still. So reach out to your council members if you have input and, want them to know how you're feeling about this, basically. But you can find us at bridgedetroit.com. My weekly newsletter goes out every Wednesday. It's free, shows up in your inbox early in the morning. You don't have to think about it. Just dig through it. And you can find us on socials as well. You can find me on Twitter and all that if you're trying to hurt yourself by going on X. It's not a fun place to be, but
hilarious. And definitely Detroit is different. I got this special announcement coming via public comment and other places. Y'all should know we doing something for community and community coming up April 21st. It's a community event for the NFL draft. I got something special. So we about to roll that out now. And next week, like I say, more public comment. We're going to get into some stuff with Detroit Public Schools pretty soon too. And we're going to talk a little county sometime soon. You know, we got to talk about that county too. You know, it's the county of Wayne and all that good stuff. So thank you.
All Metro Detroit football moms to this year's event. I have a host of pro moms coming out. To my moms, my first fan, we're having it April 21st. It's going to be on fire.
I can't wait. And I know those who may come to the event, they're going to get information, resources, hear testimonies from these moms. I know I'll be there at Mary Grove. I don't know about you, but my son's not a pro in anything. But I would love to hear from these moms.
I love to hear from them as well. So come out, have a great time with us. It's a great community event. We look forward to seeing you there.
My mom's my first fan. Pro Moms giving game to Detroit football moms, providing resources to build character and class. Sunday, April 21st at Mary Grove Conservancy. Detroit is different. Visit Detroit, Teen Hype, and Team 84. Present this community event for Detroit's NFL Draft. Register online at Eventbrite.